your heart has stopped following its own clock. It is now pacing itself to a deeper, darker rhythm emanating from the shadows of the pines. You feel it first in your teeth, a low, rhythmic thrumming that turns your movement sluggish and heavy. The birds have fled, the wind has vanished, and you realize too late that the most dangerous presence in Silver Ridge isn't something you can see. It is a sound you cannot hear, a vibration you cannot escape, and it has already begun to rewrite the physics of your survival. In the deep timberland of the north, the ultimate predator doesn't need to reach for you. It only needs to breathe. The air in the high wilderness does not just grow cold at night, it grows heavy, pressing against the chest like a weight that cannot be shaken off. Most travelers expect the snapping of a twig or the distant cry of a predator to signal danger, but in the remote stretches of the northern timberland, the real threat arrives in a silence so profound it makes the jaw ache. This is the moment a person realizes that the most dangerous forces in nature are not the ones that roar, but the ones that vibrate just below the threshold of human hearing. Something is watching from the shadows of the ancient cedars, something that has forgotten how to bark and learned how to hum a frequency that can influence the very mechanics of a heart from 100 yards away.
Out here,
Local trackers and seasoned woodsmen have begun to whisper about a phenomenon they call the Great Dissonance. For centuries, the wolves of this region were like any other, vocal, social, and majestic. But as the environment shifted and the need for a more efficient method of hunting emerged, a theoretical branch of the species may have taken hold. These are not the creatures of folklore, nor are they the animals found in standard biology textbooks. They represent a potential evolutionary anomaly, a pack that has allegedly traded its voice for a weapon of pure vibration. Some observers suggest that in the vacuum of extreme silence, certain predators might develop the ability to project infrasound, frequencies so low they are felt by the body rather than heard by the ears. Nature is full of silent hunters, from the owl's muffled wings to the shark's fluid grace. Yet, these rumored silent howlers represent a different kind of architectural mastery. Their physiology seems to have adapted, with vocal cords thickening to become low-frequency resonators, much like those found in elephants or deep-sea whales. But while an elephant uses these tones to communicate across vast savannas, these wolves have supposedly refined the energy into a localized beam of structural interference. It is a biological mystery that challenges our understanding of the predator-prey dynamic. If a predator can affect the physical integrity of its target without ever making physical contact, the very definition of a hunt is rewritten. Consider the experience of a lone hiker moving through the dense labyrinth of ancient cedar and suffocating mist that defines Silver Ridge. On these nights, there is no wind. The insects have gone dormant. Suddenly, a wave of unexplained discomfort hits, unprompted and pervasive. The vision blurs at the edges, and a strange, rhythmic pulse begins to throb in the center of the chest. It feels like the resonance of a massive subwoofer. But there is no music. There is only the sight of gray shadows drifting between the trees. They do not growl. They do not show their teeth. They simply stand, their chests expanding and contracting in a synchronized, rhythmic motion. They are howling, but the sound is directed inward, tuned to the resonant frequency of living tissue. The biological theory behind this is as fascinating as it is unsettling. Every object has a natural frequency, the rate at which it naturally vibrates. If an external sound wave matches that frequency, it can cause the object to oscillate with increasing intensity. This is the same principle that allows a glass to shatter at a specific high note. The silent howlers have seemingly mastered the organic equivalent. By emitting a sustained, low-frequency pulse, they create a state of sympathetic resonance within the internal systems of their target. The respiratory and circulatory systems begin to vibrate in harmony with the wolf's song. It is a mechanical failure of the body, triggered by nothing more than air moving at a specific, calculated rate. For those who claim to have survived an encounter near the so-called dead zone, the memories are fragmented and hazy. They speak of a hollow feeling, a sensation of being turned inside out by a force they could not see. One researcher, who spent months tracking the pack's movements via satellite data, noted that the local deer population had begun to show strange signs of distress. These animals were often found in clearings, lying down as if to rest, with no external marks and no signs of a struggle. To a casual observer, it looked as though they had simply stopped. But a closer look at the internal architecture revealed that the structural integrity of their systems had been disrupted, as if they had been subjected to a high-pressure shock wave that left the surface untouched. The environment of the northern wilderness plays a crucial role in this silent hunt. The steep valleys and granite walls of Silver Ridge act as natural acoustic chambers. These surfaces reflect low-frequency waves, bouncing them back and forth until they amplify, creating what physicists call a standing wave of pressure. A pack of these wolves can position themselves strategically around a clearing, effectively creating a zone of total physiological instability in the center. They do not need to run down their prey through the brush. They only need to surround it and wait. The silence becomes the cage. The air itself becomes the weapon. It is a display of how life adapts to its surroundings in ways we are only beginning to comprehend. It is often said that humans are at the top of the food chain because of technology and senses. But human senses are limited to a narrow band of the spectrum. People see only a sliver of light and hear only a fraction of the sound that surrounds them. We are effectively blind and deaf to the frequencies where these creatures operate. When you walk into their territory, you are entering a world where the rules of engagement are no longer based on speed or strength. You are looking for a flash of fur or the sound of a snapping branch. But the threat is already inside you, vibrating against your ribs and shaking the very foundation of your consciousness. The psychological toll of such an environment is immense. In the absolute absence of external sound, the human brain begins to manufacture its own. You might hear the phantom ringing of a telephone, or the sound of your own name being whispered in the wind. This is the mind's desperate attempt to fill the void. But the Silent Howlers take advantage of this disorientation. As the infrasound begins to affect the vestibular system, balance is lost. The horizon appears to tilt. The ground feels as though it is turning into liquid. In this state of sensory collapse, the prey becomes a prisoner of its own body, unable to flee, unable to fight, and eventually unable to maintain its connection to the physical world. There are those who argue that this is merely a legend, a story told to keep hikers away from protected or dangerous lands. They point to the lack of hard evidence or the difficulty of recording such low frequencies in the wild. But how do you document a sound that cannot be heard? How do you photograph a pressure wave? The evidence lies in the silence itself, in the patches of forest where no insects hum, and where the shadows seem just a little too coordinated. It lies in the reports of experienced woodsmen who return from the ridge with trembling hands and a permanent low-level hum echoing in their skulls. They don't talk about monsters. They talk about the way the air felt like it was trying to breathe for them. The evolution of the silent howler is a reminder that the natural world is not a static place. It is a theater of constant and sometimes chilling adaptation. If the roar of a lion is a declaration of power, then the silence of the wolf is a declaration of absolute control. It suggests a level of intelligence that understands the physics of its environment. These creatures have learned that sound is energy, and energy can be manipulated. They have moved beyond the primitive need for noise. entering a sophisticated realm of bio-acoustics that leaves no trace and offers no warning. Imagine standing in a clearing as the sun dips below the horizon. The sky turns a bruised purple, and the first stars begin to flicker. You feel a sudden, inexplicable sense of dread. It isn't a thought, it's a physical sensation, a tightening in your throat. You look around, and there, 30 yards away, is a shape. It is leaner than a typical wolf, its fur a matted, dusty charcoal. It sits perfectly still. Then another appears to your left, and another to your right. They aren't moving toward you, they are just breathing, and with every breath they take, the air around you seems to ripple. Your heart begins to skip beats, trying to find a rhythm it can sustain against the invisible pulse coming from the pack. You try to call out for help, but your lungs will not cooperate. The pressure in the air is too high. It feels as if you are deep underwater, the weight of the ocean pressing in from all sides. The silence is no longer an absence of sound. It is a heavy, physical presence. It is a wall. You realize then that the wolves aren't waiting for a physical opening. They are waiting for you to become part of the silence. They are the conductors of a symphony that no human ear will ever hear. A performance where the final note is the cessation of all motion. As theoretical research into bioacoustics continues, some believe that these packs are expanding their territory. The encroachments of the civilization have pushed them into new areas where the terrain provides even better acoustic amplification. Abandoned mines, deep canyons, and even the concrete corridors of industrial ruins could provide the perfect stage for their silent work. If this is true, the danger is no longer confined to the remote wilderness. It is a shadow moving toward the edges of our world, a threat that we cannot see, cannot hear, and cannot defend against because we refuse to believe in what we cannot perceive. We have spent centuries perfecting tools to detect the visible, but we are defenseless against the atmospheric. The mystery of the Silent Howlers remains one of nature's most chilling enigmas. It challenges our sense of safety and our belief in our own sensory superiority. It reminds us that there are forces in the dark that do not need to bite to cause harm. They only need to exist. They only need to breathe. And as long as there are places where the wind doesn't reach and the light doesn't penetrate, the silence will continue to grow. It is a vibration in the earth, a tremor in the air, and a warning to anyone who dares to step too far into the quiet places of the world. If you ever find yourself in the woods and the birds suddenly stop singing, if you feel a hum in your bones and a pressure in your chest that doesn't belong there, do not wait for a sign. Do not look for a predator in the brush. Just move. Run until the birds start their chatter again, until the air feels light, and until the silence is once again just a lack of noise. Because in the realm of the Silent Howlers, the moment you realize what is happening is the moment it is already too late. The vibration is already in your blood, and the pack is already singing you to sleep with a song that has no sound. The world is much older and much stranger than we often admit. Our ancestors knew to fear the shadows, but perhaps we have forgotten to fear the stillness. We have built a world of noise to drown out the things that move in the quiet, but the quiet is patient. It waits at the edges of our maps, in the gaps between our scientific certainties. The Silent Howlers are a testament to that patience. They are the ghosts of the forest, the masters of the infrasonic, and the ultimate reminders that in the struggle for survival, the most effective weapon is the one that the target never even knows is being used. Keep your ears open, but more importantly, listen with your body. Feel the air. Pay attention to the way the world moves when it should be still. The next time you find yourself in a place of perfect silence, remember that you might not be alone. You might just be standing in the middle of a howl that you aren't equipped to hear. In those moments, your biological autonomy is at risk, as your internal systems begin to sync with the predator's design. And in that silence, the only thing louder than the beating of your own heart is the steady rhythmic pulse of something watching, something humming, and something waiting for the perfect frequency to bring everything to a close. The trackers say that if you look closely at the eyes of a survivor, you can see a permanent flicker, a residual vibration of the soul that never quite settled back into its original state. They are people who have been tuned to a different world, one where the boundaries between life and the environment are blurred by sound. They walk through the cities now, but they are always listening for the hum, always feeling for the pressure. They know that the Silver Ridge is not just a place on a map, but a gateway to an evolutionary frontier where the predator has become the air itself. What if the Great Dissonance isn't just a local anomaly? What if it is a blueprint for the future of hunting? As we continue to urbanize the wild, we may be creating the very acoustic conditions, the tunnels, the valleys of glass and steel that these entities thrive in. The silence is no longer a sanctuary. It is a signal. It is a frequency that is waiting to find its match. And when it does, there will be no roar, no struggle, and no warning. Only the sound of the wind that isn't blowing, and the heart that has finally found a rhythm it can no longer control.